The latest Pompey news, updates every day from the Pompey Sound news desk.
John Mousinho bemoans missed chances against Stoke, but is full of praise for KIRK.
We just didn't put the ball in the back of the net. I think Mackenzie's chance was a sliding doors moment, but ultimately, if we do miss chances at the top end of the pitch, we have to make sure it doesn't affect us and we still keep a clean sheet. That was the disappointment of conceding the goal. I thought he was really good, that's why we kept him on. I thought he was a constant threat, and unlucky not to get a couple of goals really. For his full league debut, I thought he was excellent. I thought he was a different threat to what we've necessarily had this season. He worked the shoulder really well. He got caught offside a couple of times, but he only needs one of those to come off, to get in behind. I thought Mackenzie came on well on Tuesday night, stretched the game really well and got his goal. So it was a case of getting two goal scorers on the pitch, working off each other, and giving ourselves the best possible chance to stretch the game while playing between the lines as well.
Just talking about Mackenzie KIRK's sliding doors opportunity, which was missed and therefore the game was lost. If it had been scored, then who knows what the result would have been. But we wouldn't have ended up with a clean sheet at the end we were attacking. If you think back to that goal, he was all by himself in a blue shirt. He got into the perfect position. He knew exactly where Josh Murphy, even though he's hardly played with him at all, he knew exactly where Murphy was going to put the ball, and he got himself in exactly the right position. But where were all the other blue shirts? When Murphy's bombing down towards the position that he makes such good crosses from, then surely we want four people in the box. Well, we would have had four because we had KIRK. There was another Pompey player wide on the right, quite a way off the action actually, and the ball was never going to come to him there because Josh was never going to do a far post cross in the situation that he was in. It was always going to be what it was. A near post cross, kind of on the edge of the 6-yard box, although in fact it was well inside the 6-yard box. But here's the thing, there were two other Pompey players bearing down on the opportunity that was going to present itself. You may not have noticed this. We ourselves couldn't work this out until we took a detailed look at the opportunity, and it's quite simply this. Colby Bishop is making a beeline for where he knows the ball is going to be played to, and so is Connor Chaplin, and the two of them run into each other, impeding Chaplin and sending Colby Bishop onto the deck. So when KIRK finds himself in the perfect position to score that goal but didn't, the man who desperately wants to be on the end of those crosses and might, you can't be certain, you can only speculate, might have finished it better than KIRK, was on his hands and knees as a result of an accidental collision with another Pompey player. Sliding doors moment for sure in terms of the game, but in terms of that particular moment and the way it eventualised itself, it was just plain old bad luck.
Josh Murphy is setting the record straight about the injury that kept him out of action, and the reason being seen in a surgical boot at one point was a false alarm.
It was a ligament injury, lots of fluids around one of the tendons and one of the ligaments, so effectively it was just a bad sprain. At one point I went down to London on the train to get an injection in my ankle, so part of the protocol was I had to spend a week in a boot after that. I know there was a photograph of that. Sometimes things aren't as bad as what they actually seem. It was just a precaution. When I was around my house I could take off the boot and walk around normally. It was just to give me a bit more support. While I was out injured I could still do a lot of stuff. I could run, but only in a straight line. It was just a change of direction. There was a conversation we had about can you just try to see how you can manage in a game, but at the same time, I want to be able to twist and turn and actually help my team. If I can't press I feel like I'm letting my team down, so we made the decision to take the time until I was fully able to give the team 100%.
Yeah, I think a lot of Pompey fans still aren't over the story that did the rounds within 24 hours of Alex Robertson being seen in a boot, surgical boot, at the training ground after he had done his hamstring, trying to backheel the ball during training. And it's left a lot of Pompey fans thinking that the boot, the surgical boot, is an indication of an injury that could take up to 6 months to repair itself. So I didn't see the photograph of Josh Murphy in the boot, but clearly it did the rounds on social media and had an awful lot of people understandably concerned. But there's the story. He needed the boot for getting about when he was outside the house. He'd had an injection in his ankle. It was only a sprain, a bad sprain. He had an injection in his ankle, partly because there were fluids around one of the tendons and one of the ligaments. He doesn't say whether the injection was to reduce the swelling or for some other purpose, but evidently, whatever it was, it worked. He was able to walk around the house perfectly normally, and he's now back in training, I guess, 100%, but nevertheless being looked after. And we all, I think, have our fingers crossed that he's going to start the next game, which, of course, is against Birmingham, because we found out, didn't we, in his appearance on Saturday, just how valuable he is to the side. We are not a one-man team, but when we can open the opposition up like a tin of sardines down the left, then it means a huge amount to our, goals for count, really. We will score more goals with him on the pitch than when he's not on the pitch, whether it's him getting the cross in, the assist, or whether it's him doing the actual scoring. He's an absolute diamond, and he's put our fears at rest. I think next time we hear about or see a picture of a Pompey player in a surgical boot, we'll remember that they might only be just a week away from being able to play, to go out and train on the grass, as they say. So thanks for clearing that one up, Josh Murphy, and fingers crossed we're going to see you at kick-off time in a blue shirt against Birmingham.
Tom Chappell of 4-0 All Over It has this on the Stoke game.
Everything felt a little bit undercooked at Fratton Park on Saturday. Pre-game build-up, a crowd largely unmoved throughout, performance on the pitch, and the ultimate result. The majority of the afternoon was pretty bereft of action, and rather dull. There were signs of energy from the beginning of the second half, during which we were the better side for the only period of the game following a very forgettable first 45. We had a real lack of control, particularly in central areas. Defensively, we didn't look assured at all, even putting the rather unfortunate own goal aside. It was also one of those days where Pompey could have been playing until Christmas and still not have scored. Perhaps a dreary 0-0 would have been a more befitting scoreline, but Pompey's at times apathetic showing certainly didn't look worthy of any more than a point at a push. Josh Murphy's return is unbelievably welcome. He makes the team so much more offensively threatening, and will in turn hopefully help put Colby Bishop's barren run in front of goal to an end. Pompey need to properly turn up in Birmingham this weekend. Our start to the campaign at home is now worryingly poor, particularly given that Fratton Park provided a cornerstone to our survival last season. There's also a bit of a restlessness within the fan base that John Messinio's side have seemingly abandoned the style in which we so brilliantly mastered our home form last year, where very few sides would come away with anything from PO4. It is bizarre to say, but right now it's probably a positive that we only have 3 home games between now and the start of December. It wasn't too long ago that you'd fancy us against anyone on home soil. John Swift's late leveller at Leicester feels like quite some time ago. The likes of Callum Lang, Nico Schmid, Conor Shaughnessy and now Adrian Segicic will all return in time, and there's no doubt in my mind regarding our divisional status for another season at the moment. But, with an out-of-position Connor Chaplin and an out-of-form Bishop, Pompey are slowly sleepwalking into a bit of trouble.
He talks a lot of sense right across that piece, Tom Chappell, except right at the death. I don't think you can say that a team that makes 3 big changes, one of them enforced, 2 of them enforced, sort of enforced, for a big game like Stoke is sleepwalking into trouble, because we played a 21-year-old virtually untried centre-forward on trust, taking a risk. This isn't sleepwalking. We realised that our centre-half, Josh Knight, who is very reliable but had a poorish game and found himself, chillingly out of position when Coventry walked that second goal into the net, and so he was dropped. A radical decision, and we brought in not an untried centre-half at all in the case of Hayden Matthews, but nevertheless someone who is raw, someone who is green, someone who's been travelling the world in jet airliners, in different time zones with his country, but not playing. It's all unsettling stuff, but we took the risk. The manager took the risk. He always says we. He talks to his backroom staff, of course, his fellow coaches. Why wouldn't you? They know what they're talking about. They know the squad inside out. He took some calculated risks. In terms of the result, it didn't quite come off. Well, it didn't come off at all. In terms of the performance, it didn't quite come off. But we need to park it there for a second. And Mick Robertson alludes to this, I think, quite brilliantly in his piece about the Stoke game, in which he talked about the slightly unreal feeling of having to get up early. In his case, it's a 2-hour journey to Fratton Park from where he lives. Getting up early and not having his usual routine. His usual routine is to meet his mates in the staggering and have a couple. I think he has a couple. He might have 3. I don't know. He doesn't go crazy. He doesn't arrive legless at all. He takes the train, so he's quite entitled to enjoy himself. And you want to enjoy your Saturday. That's not necessarily alcohol dependent, of course, but for a great many Pompey fans, that pint or two and having a laugh and bonding with your mates, with your fellow Pompey fans, your friends who also have supported Pompey for as long as you have. You're in it together. You're starting to lift yourselves and you make your way to the ground and you get there, whatever it is. In your case, it might be half an hour, it might be 20 minutes, it might be 10 minutes, you might be one of the late arrivals, but it's your routine and it's precious to you. And after the game, you have the same thing, a routine. You know that you're maybe going to have 2 pints and then safely get your way home. Or you know that maybe you're going to stop off at the chippy and get fish and chips for everybody so that you can enjoy whilst you're watching Michael McIntyre or whoever is on. Or maybe, if you're that way inclined, you get home, you have a quick shower, you spruce up and off you go out into the night time and the nightlife. But it's your routine. And routine is so important for optimum performance. I've often wondered why it is that racehorses are race walked at 5 and 6 o'clock in the morning. And every trainer I've spoken to about it says, yeah, we would rather train them at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, which is when they race. But we can't do it for practical, logistical reasons, because we might have 2 horses going at Pontefract and another 2 that we've got to get ready the following to race the following day. And so we've got to juggle our training routines and training facilities and our lorries, our horse boxes, I should say. So we do this. Also, we have we depend on a lot of volunteers to do the race walking. They tend to walk the horses for 3 or 4 miles first thing in the morning, just to stretch their legs. But they've all said the same thing. We would rather give the performers the same routine that they're going to have on match day or race day in the case of the horses. So routine is extremely important, and the new dominance of television and the requirements of the people who are writing fact checks to all of the clubs, their requirements have become paramount. The result doesn't matter as far as they're concerned, as long as they get bums on seats watching the game all round the world. And the happiness of the fans doesn't matter at all. The comfort and convenience and the matchday experience of the fans who attend really doesn't matter at all. And you can understand that. They want people watching on, the one-eyed monster, the television. Now, what this does to the result and the performance of the players on the pitch is, as far as we're concerned, crucial. Were the players switched off because their routine was rent asunder by a 12:30 kickoff? Now, people are going to say, well, it shouldn't have been. They're paid enough money to deal with it, and all that silly argument, naive argument. The fact is they're human beings, and they, like us, attending the game, the home game, they need their routine. They need to be getting up at the same time and having breakfast in the same way, and preparing to get in the car in the same way, and driving the same route. Well, they were able to do that on Saturday. The traffic may have been a bit different, but that's not going to affect them. But they're also aware of the fact that the crowd aren't G'd up. And the reason the crowd wasn't G'd up was because of the 12:30 kickoff. And the crowd not being G'd up, they couldn't G the players up. It was quiet on Saturday by comparison to some of the, the decibels that we've got used to. So, what are we saying at Pompey Sound? We seem to be unanimous. There has to be some sort of consideration given when we have an unusual time for kick-off. Leicester was 8 o'clock in the evening. That means that at the back of their minds, the players are thinking, I'm not going to get to bed till 2 in the morning here. I hate that. I hate going in and having to creep about because I don't want to wake people up. I like to come in and give it, yeah. I nearly scored. I saved a certain goal. Yeah, but they can't. They've got to creep around the house in the dark. So that's a late night. We never used to have late night Saturday kickoffs, but now we get them for television. No, actually, that was for rugby. I beg your pardon. That was because there was apparently a more important rugby game going on in the Leicester area. But these unusual kickoff times and playing football on unusual days is something that men of the age of 25 are having to adjust to. Because when they started getting interested in football, it happened at 3 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon, and that was the end of it. None of your fancy lunchtime kickoffs. None of your fancy Monday night games. None of your strange Sunday lunchtime games. Does it affect the result? Does it affect the outcome of leagues and general competitions? It's beginning to look as though it does. We need somebody out there who has got the computer and got the computer-like brain to do the stats on it. Are more results going against the grain, against, if you like, the odds, literally, because you can look at a set of odds and say, yes, the home side are clear favourites to win that one, on merit, they should win that one. And then because they're kicking off at 2:15 in the middle of the night, well, that hasn't come to it yet, but don't count your chickens. Is the result screwed? Is the outcome changed because of the strange kickoff time? Okay, there's plenty to be learned there, but the thing is, two things. One, we have no idea how it's going to be learned. Two, we are definitely not sleepwalking into trouble.